Hi everyone, I'm Helen Skilton, and for your lockdown entertainment, I'm going to give you a Dharma and science talk on waking up the land. We'll be going to looking at the physical conditions, the Utu Niyamas, that allow for such a diversity of life on Earth. And we also have a visiting speaker, Ines Wood, demonstrating how the land on this magnificent Earth is used. So here we are in a temperate wood, one that you'd often find in the UK. And you can see it demonstrates a very biodiverse system, bio meaning living. There's lots of living organisms here. And a high biodiversity means lots of different types of species and a large healthy population within each type of species. I mean, we can only see the plants, but you know that hidden away there'll be small animals, insects, birds. You can almost imagine the sound. These plants have produced a variety of niches, different areas for all these animals to live. An ecosystem is a system which has both living and physical components. And before we look at the living components, I want us to discuss what are the physical components or the conditions. What are the physical conditions for life? You may not have any scientific background, that doesn't matter, but I'm going to pause. I'm going to ask you to pause it now and think, before I tell you the answers, what are the physical conditions of this world, basically? What are the conditions in our world that allow living things to live? And if you're really stuck, you can always think about the 6 element practice. That might give you some clues. Right, I'm assuming you've paused and you've got all the right answers. So let me just go straight on and talk about the 6 elements because they fit in quite nicely with the scientific. It's the same concepts, just slightly different words. So what are the 6 elements? They are earth, air, water, fire, space, and consciousness. We're not going to talk about consciousness because that really is about animal behaviour. And we're looking lower down on the Uta Niyamas, the lower down conditions, the physical conditions that allow for life. So we need earth. Yes, we need that land. We need that solid stuff. And we need space. So we can see the space here. We need the space and we need the solid earth for plants to grow. We also need the air. What we've got in that air is plenty of oxygen, fortunately, for us animals to breathe. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants breathe in oxygen as well and give out carbon dioxide, but provided they've got light, they will take in far more carbon dioxide. So plants need carbon dioxide. So they'll be taking in more carbon dioxide than they'll be giving out, and then they give out oxygen. They are the ones, the producers, the plants are the ones that produce our oxygen. So that's our earth, that's our space, that's our air. Water is also essential. Now, if you are a Stephen Hawking's fan, you know that he said that our planet is in the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot and not too cold. Just the perfect distance from the sun to produce liquid water. And that's what scientists do. They look for planets of a similar size and a similar distance from a star, because that is the Goldilocks zone. That's the winning formula. We need liquid water for anything to live. We might look dry, the trees might look dry, but inside the living cells of our bodies and every other animal and living creature, plant or tree, they will be soaked in water. It's the universal solvent. We need water. And of course, it's a water cycle, really. The water falls down and then it evaporates up the trees and all these plants, and it's a water cycle. Okay, so have we got everything so far? We have earth, space, air, water. Fifth one then is fire. And not only is it the perfect temperature for liquid water, but it's also just the right temperature for our molecules, all those molecules in that chemical periodic table, all those molecules to jiggle around, interact, form complex molecules. And as they're dissolved in water, they can interact and form even more complex molecules. So we've got a diverse range of chemicals we can make, materials, different materials made from these different elements. So that's the heat element, but something also very important comes from the sun, and that is light. So the two together, the heat and light, are the fire element. Now that's the physical components of an ecosystem, the 5 elements. Now we're going to have a quick look at the living components. Now, in reality, it is a complex web of interactions between all the organisms. But a good way of looking at it is with a pyramid. Now, this pyramid could represent numbers of organisms, the masses of organisms, or it could represent the amount of energy or fire in a system. Either way, whatever way you look at it, we need more producers than anything else in an ecosystem. Now, producers are the plants and algae that photosynthesize, and they produce all the oxygen that living organisms need and all the food. All our food is produced by the producers. We are the producers, either directly or indirectly. Think about it. These herbivores, carnivores, or top carnivores, predators, whatever their trophic level, their food level, they get their food directly or indirectly from a producer. Even the decomposers at the bottom have to decompose something. Quick question. Can you think of one food, something that us humans eat, that is not produced by a producer, directly or indirectly? It's not in this pyramid, and it's not living. So can you think of something that is not produced by the producers' food that we eat? I can only think of one thing. Answers at the very end. If this pyramid was represented a pyramid of energy, or fire, so to speak, then we have to talk about the sun again, because it is the light that provides the energy in this system. It is the light that the producers use to draw the carbon dioxide out of the air, recombine it with water, and produce food. That food could be carrots, wheats, leaves, bark, whatever it is. It is food for higher levels, captured in a form of chemical energy. And that is called photosynthesis. So the producers, as I said, they produce all our food, and a byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen. So again, us being in the Goldilocks zone, just the right distance from the sun, allows enough heat for liquid water, but also helps the chemical molecules to jig around just right so they can interact with each other. So it's not just the heat from the sun, it's the light, perfect amount of light, which allows our producers to capture and transfer that into chemical energy. Quick question. Where are us humans in this pyramid? And if we wanted to save energy, what would we eat? You can pause it now. So the answer. Well, us humans, of course, are omnivores, so we can be anywhere we want to in here. And if we wanted to save energy, of course, we would eat the producers, because at each trophic level, energy is lost as heat or waste. But it's not energy, or light or heat, that is a shortage, is it? It's not on our Earth. Fortunately, our sun's going to be around for a long time. It's the land, it's the amount of land that is limiting the amount of producers we produce. So let's get back to our biodiverse ecosystem. We've looked at the physical conditions, niyamas, that allow for the living components, and a little bit of how they interact in a hierarchy. All of us relying on our producers. Now, it would be nice if this was a typical example of the English countryside, but it's not really, is it? This is our English countryside. Beautiful though it is mainly a monoculture. Over the centuries, forests have been cleared for crops and grazing, leaving forests on area which may be difficult to grow crops on, and a few hedgerows. But currently, it is the tropical rainforests that are being burnt down. This wonder of 3D biodiversity. According to the World Wide Fund, we're losing 18.7 million acres of forest a year, equivalent to 27 football fields every minute. And to relate it to climate change, instead of this carbon dioxide sink, taking carbon dioxide out of the air, recombining it to produce food, i.e. more producers, we're burning all of this. This is carbon-based life form. And when you burn that, carbon dioxide goes straight back into the air. We are burning the forest to create a monoculture, either for crops or grazing. This is not a rich biodiverse system. This is a factory. And this is another example. The Indonesian rainforest is being cleared for palm oils. It's devastating. It is an ecological emergency. Species are being annihilated. Now that's enough from me about the physical conditions that allow life on land, our land. Right, well now for a change of pace, I'm going to hand you over to Ines Wood. She's doing her GCSEs in Brighton, and with a little bit of help from her dad, John, they've come up with this fantastic video showing us how the land is actually used. It's a little bit fast in parts, but not to worry, I will go over the key points again.
Every week in the UK, we kill 20 million chickens, 54,750 cows, and 227,000 pigs, just for their meat. Also, most of these animals spend their lives in factory farms and poor conditions. This is planet Earth. It is made up of 71% ocean and 29% land. Of that land, 70% is habitable, 18% is barren, for example mountains and desert, 1% is freshwater, 1% is urban and 10% is glacial. Of this habitable land, 51% is agricultural, 2% is urban, 10% is natural grassland and 37% is forest. Of that agricultural land, 23% is food crops for people and 77% is meat and dairy production, which includes grazing food and crops for farmed animals.
So on our blue planet,
it is made up of 71% ocean and 29% land.
Land is less than 30% of the surface. So we've got a huge ocean there on our planet.
Of that land, 70% is habitable, 18% is barren, for example mountains and desert, 1% is freshwater, 1% is urban and 10% is glacial.
So of that land, only 70% is habitable, where living things can live, or large living things. It's too cold. Water is not liquid when it's icy, or there's not enough water in the deserts, or it's too hilly. So that is 80% barren and 10% glacier. And then we have 1% is fresh water. So that is not much. We've got a lot of seawater on this earth, but not fresh water. And then 1% is urban, which is very surprising because that urban statistics includes all our houses, all our runways, and all our roads. So we're only living on a small amount.
Of this habitable land, 51% is agricultural, 2% is urban, 10% is natural grassland, and 37% is forest.
So of the habitable land, 2% is urban. We have 37% forest and 10% grassland, but 51% of our habitable land is farmland.
Of that agricultural land, 23% is food crops for people, and 77% is meat and dairy production, which includes grazing food and crops for farmed animals.
So of that 51% of land for our farming, 77 is for our meat and dairy. And that's either the animals themselves grazing or extra food, because we have to make extra food to feed these animals.
Meat and dairy production originally was less intensive and was organic. As the human population has grown, meat and dairy production has become more intensive. For example, pigs no longer eat waste food and crops are grown specifically for them. And modern pig farming is also heavily reliant on antibiotics. This could lead to the risk of antibiotic resistance in human diseases. Meat and dairy production has had a huge impact on biodiversity. Some of the effects are: most modern grazing land has been improved by the addition of fertilizers. This reduces the variety of wild plants and flowers, which then has a knock-on effect on insect and bird populations. Another effect is that farmers have got rid of all the large carnivores, for example wolves and bears, to protect their livestock. But this has led to an increase in, for example, deer populations, causing overgrazing in the remaining wild areas and creating even more biodiversity to be lost. Also, many animals that are on grazing land have supplementary feeding, mainly soya, which is a major factor of deforestation. Animal agriculture is responsible for 15% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Also, meat and dairy production is a massive drain on the Earth's water resources. And we feed enough grain and plant foods to farm animals to feed the entire human population of the planet. If we gave up meat and dairy, we could give a minimum of 20% of land back to nature, cut greenhouse gas emissions, and have a more sustainable future. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Well, thank you, Ines. That was very interesting. Well, I hope you've enjoyed exploring the physical conditions on Earth that allow for such a rich variety of life on Earth. It truly is unique. It is a miracle. Unfortunately, we also have seen the impact of human agriculture on this Earth. The climate and ecological emergency is not going to go away unless we do something about it. And there are more intelligent ways that we can manage our land to help feed our population. One of them is to eat more of a plant-based diet. And there are others, but they require large global structural changes. I don't have all the answers. I'm just starting the conversation. I do hope you've enjoyed your talk. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of the Buddhist Action Month activities. Bye.